In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front knuckle assembly with the wheel bearing and hub on this Hyundai Sonata. Let's get started. Use a 21mm socket, remove all 5 lug nuts, and then we can pull the wheel off. Just a little note, if yours has hub caps, when you take the lug nuts off, the hub cap is going to want to come off, so take that off first, then the wheel. Let's remove the axle nut. The cotter pin locks it in, so we're going to take some cutters, straighten this out, punch it through. Cutters are useful because they can grab onto it like this and pull it straight out. Discard the cotter pin. You don't want to reuse these. Now take a 32mm socket, loosen up the axle nut. If you don't have an impact to do this, what you can do is use a breaker bar and a pry bar right between the lug studs. That's going to prevent the hub from spinning as you loosen it with the breaker bar. Take that off. There's also a lock washer behind here. Take this off as well. Now make sure the axle pushes through the hub. If it's seized, take a punch and a hammer and punch it right in the center. The vibrations are going to break it free. Mine moves, so I'm good to go. On the back of the knuckle, you'll see this 12mm headed bolt that holds the brake hose and the ABS wire onto the, back of the knuckle. So we have to remove these with a socket, break this bolt free, and remove it the rest of the way. With the bolt out, we can move these aside. To take the caliper off now, there's a 17mm headed bolt right through the knuckle here where we just moved the brake hose out of the way, and another one right up on top of the tie rod end. Let's take both of these out so we can pull the caliper and bracket assembly off the knuckle. There's one bolt. There's a washer that goes with it. Hold on to the caliper and remove the second bolt right on the bottom. Now set the caliper aside. I'm going to hang it right back here so it doesn't put any pressure on the brake hose. Now you want to take the rotor off. Using a 19mm socket, remove the mounting nut for the tie rod stud that goes through the knuckle. With it off, I'm going to start this on a few threads so that when I hammer the knuckle to break the tie rod free, it doesn't just fall down. There we go. Try to not hit the boot, of course. That would damage it. Pull this off. Set that aside. From the other side of the knuckle, you'll see where the ABS sensor goes into the knuckle, and there's a 10mm headed bolt here that holds this on. Break it free and remove it. With that set aside, usually you can grab some pliers, grab onto the ABS sensor, twist it, and pull it right out. Hopefully yours isn't stuck in the knuckle. Sometimes that happens. And if it is, you just have to stick a screwdriver in on the side of it the best you can without prying it sideways, because that'll break it, and just lift it right up and out of the knuckle as you twist it sideways with the pliers. Now at the upper ball joint, we need to remove the cotter pin so that we can remove the mounting nut that holds it in. You can use some cutters, grab onto the end, and basically pry it through. There we go. Discard this cotter pin. You never want to reuse them. Use a 17mm socket. Remove this mounting nut. I'm going to put it back on just a few threads so that when I hammer this to break the stud free, these don't fly apart, and I can actually control when it separates. Use a hammer. Hammer right on the end of the knuckle right here. Careful not to hit the boot. With the help of a pry bar, you can hold the control arm down so you can remove the mounting nut the rest of the way. Slowly separate these. Pull the knuckle forward. As you pull the knuckle forward, make sure the axle slides out, just like that. And now there are 2 bolts on the bottom that we have to remove for the ball joint. They're 17 millimeter in size, 1 on each side. There's one. Hold on to the knuckle and remove the other. There it is. Get the axle through the hub, line up the knuckle with the ball joint, and there isn't really anything that's going to make it stay lined up. You just have to start the bolt in while holding it. Make sure you start this by hand. You do not want this cross-threading. The threads are right in the knuckle and you don't want to damage them. This one's starting in nicely. I'm going to go in as much as I can by hand so I can be sure that this isn't going to fall off if I let go. There we go. Now I can let go and start in the other one. All right, with both started, let's snug them up. Torque these to 65 foot-pounds. There's one. And the other. You want to add anti-seize to the splines of the axle before you fully seat it into the hub. Mine is already coated, so I'm going to leave it. This will just prevent it from getting stuck in the hub in the future. Guide it in to the splines. You might have to spin it and wiggle it, push it through, and push the knuckle up. Let's reinstall the upper ball joint into the knuckle. Use a pry bar to pry the ball joint back into the knuckle. Once you have it through, put your mounting nut on. Just bring it in as far as you can. Let's tighten it up. 33 foot-pounds is the torque for this mounting nut. It's going to spin, that's normal. That's it right there. Now this being a castle nut, you have to line up the slot. My slot is way below the castle nut. That's fine, so I don't need to continue tightening. But if yours was in line with the castle nut, you'd always want to continue tightening to line up the next slot and never loosen to get these to line up. Stick in your cotter pin, and we're going to bend it over to lock it in. Always use a new cotter pin. This one that I have is extra long, so I'm going to cut off the excess. There we go. Let's get the ABS sensor in. I put a little bit of silicone paste. You can use grease right on the edge here so that it doesn't seize inside of the mounting hole. Line it up and put the bolt in to lock it in. Once this is bottomed out, snug it just a little bit. That's bottomed out right there. Give it an 1/8 of a turn at most. That's all you want. This is a small bolt holding onto plastic and you don't want to break or strip anything out. Apply a little bit of anti-seize to the surface of the hub right where the rotor mounts. I know it's clean and rust-free, but you always want to protect it to prevent it from rusting in the future. Also go right around the center here. Try to avoid getting it on the lug studs. You want those threads to stay nice and dry. If you get a little bit on there, no big deal, just wipe it off. But focus on the surface of the hub, like I said, to keep it corrosion-free. You don't need a lot. A little bit goes a long way because if you put too much, it'll actually squeeze out when you put the rotor on and it'll start flinging everywhere, and you want to avoid that. Put the tie rod into the knuckle, push it through all the way, install the mounting nut, snug it up, and let's torque this to 25 foot-pounds. That's it right there. I have a locking nut, but if you have a castle nut with a cotter pin, keep turning the nut until you line up the next slot so you can stick your cotter pin through and then bend it over to lock it in. When using a rotor that has debris and rust on the inside, you want to sand it down so it's nice and flat. My rotor is actually new, so I'm just going to slide this on. Slide the rotor back on. Slide the caliper with the bracket and pads right over the rotor. Hold it in position and start one of the bolts in. Make sure the bolt has the lock washer installed on it. And once you get it started, start in the other one. All right, with both of them started, let's bottom them out. Torque both of these caliper bolts to 55 foot-pounds. All right, let's reattach the two brackets. One holds the brake hose and the other one the ABS wire. They go right into that threaded hole on the knuckle. The ABS wire bracket goes over the brake hose bracket, so make sure you have them lined up right. Get that bolt started. Once you have it started, snug it up. As you tighten this, make sure that that little hook on the top of the brake hose bracket slides into its opening. This is bottomed out. Just going to give it a little bit extra. That's all it takes. These are small brackets and you don't want to damage that bolt. Let's install the washer that goes over the axle and then the axle nut. Thread this on. Use a 32mm socket, bottom it out and snug it. Now let's torque this to 207 foot-pounds. To prevent the hub from spinning, I'm going to use a pry bar, put it right between the lug studs. Once again, 207 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Remove the pry bar. This being a castle nut, you should tighten in order to line up the next slot if your slot doesn't line up. Now the axle does have 2 holes. This one is very close to being lined up. So I definitely can't tighten it any more than this. It is very tight already. So I'm going to slide the cotter pin in, and I know that it's not going to just slide right in, but I'm going to help it along with a hammer, especially now that it's in the way of this lug stud. There we go. And that fits through, and I can lock in the axle nut. Of course, bend the cotter pin over to fully lock it in place. Let's get the wheel back on. If your wheels had hubcaps, you're going to want to put them on now because the lug nuts go over and clamp everything together. Just make sure you line up the cutout for the valve stem with the valve stem, of course, otherwise it won't fit on properly. And now start in all 5 of your lug nuts. We'll bottom them out and torque them to 79 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to seat the wheel properly. And 79 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them. After finishing this repair, it's important to have an alignment done on your vehicle.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.